Sorry, everybody. Apologies for the delayed start. Welcome to the September 28th, 2020 meeting of the Newmarket Budget Committee. As always, I'd like to start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, that went about as well as it normally does. Thanks, everybody. Also, because we are meeting remotely, as we have been for the past several months, please allow me to take a minute to read the notice of remote meeting. I'd also, I guess, ask anybody who if you're not directly speaking, just please go on mute, because we're getting a little background noise into the line here. Hey, Tim, I think that's you, bud. Can you go on mute? Thank you. As chairman of the Municipal Budget Committee, due to the COVID-19 coronavirus crisis and in accordance with Governor Sununu's Emergency Order Number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this board is authorized to meet electronically. Please note there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously through the meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the Governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, this is to confirm that we are providing access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We are utilizing the Zoom platform for this electronic meeting, and all members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through the Zoom platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in this meeting through dialing area code. I'm going to switch back to our invite here for a moment. 929-205-6099, and the meeting ID is 844-4506-7551. We are also providing the public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting via Zoom. Instructions have been provided on the Town of Newmarket website at www.newmarketnh.gov. There are provisions made for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If so, please call area code 602-292-1221. And lastly, we will adjourn the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. In the event that this happens, the meeting will be rescheduled. Please note that all votes taken during this meeting should be done by roll call vote. All right, so let's start with a quick roll call attendance. So I'd ask people to affirm that you're here, and also we need everybody to state whether they're alone or whether there is somebody else in the room with them, just for purposes of the law and the record. I did want to start by saying Rob Orton's emailed me this evening. He has an illness running through his family, so he's not able to join us this evening. Jeff Robb?
Present and alone.
Roger Cady?
Present and alone.
Thank you. Joe LaMattina?
I'm present and alone.
Mike LaBranch?
Present and alone.
Eric Wagode?
Present and alone.
And Matt Evangelista?
Present and alone.
Thank you. One other bit of information to pass along to everybody. John Baldy submitted his resignation to the town, leaving the budget committee, as he and his family have decided to relocate out of town, so he's no longer eligible to serve. So we do once again have a vacancy on the budget committee. A notice was posted. I know we've gotten one sort of indication of interest, and anyone who would like to express interest should submit a letter of interest to the town. I believe there are directions on the town website where you can submit that. All right.
And this is Mike Kennison. I'm present and alone.
Oh, Mike, I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. Mike and Councilor Brabeck, you're,
Present and alone.
all right. Apologies. I'm sorry, both of you. Thank you. We also have some invited guests who are with us tonight. Superintendent Givens, are you
Present and alone?
okay? And Representative Cahill, thank you for joining us this evening. Are you? You're also on mute.
Yeah, present and alone and silent,
you.
yes, thank you.
Thank you. The school business administrator, Jana Mellon.
Present and alone.
Thank you. Thank you. And we also have Representative Leno from the House of Representatives, New Hampshire House of Representatives, just to be clear.
Hi, Dave Luno here in Hopkinton. My wife's home, and so is Ozzy, the long-haired dachshund.
All right, as long as we have full disclosure, that's the main thing. So ordinarily, this is the place on our agenda where we review minutes, but I would like to propose to the committee members, in the interest of the fact that we do have invited guests, if everyone would be all right with allowing Dave Leno and to go and make his presentation first. Does anybody have any objection to that? Hearing none and seeing nobody's lips move while on mute. Dave, Joe shared with us your document that the draft report that you'd like to go over. I know you're probably not going to go through it word for word, but it was an interesting read, and please, the floor is yours. Take it away.
Great. Well, thanks very much, Dan, and thanks for inviting me to be with you tonight, and thanks for all the good work that you guys do for Newmarket and all of New Hampshire, for that matter. So I wasn't really planning on going through the report, certainly not word by word, and what I think I can probably do best is give you all an introduction to the School Funding Commission, what we're doing, how we're doing it, and then maybe remark on a few of the highlights, I think, from our research consultant's final report, and what may be coming forward, in terms of how this would, manifest during the next legislative session. Michael, does that sound about right?
Yes, I think that's great, that we need to have people out in budget committees and other bodies understanding what we're up against and what we might be able to do to make things a little bit better for education and for property taxpayers.
Right. And so with that, let me just take a couple minutes and introduce the commission. Then I'll talk a little bit about the report, and then I'll sort of open it up for questions, and if that works for everybody. What the legislature did last year, actually in the budget that was passed in 2019, was establish a commission to take a look at how we go about funding schools in New Hampshire. And I think at first blush you'd say, all right, well, big yawn here. That's happened before, and where's it gotten us? And we recognize that. And so first of all, the commission isn't just doing something by itself. It was part of a three-step process to help cities and towns and school districts with funding public education in their communities. And the very first step that we took in the state's 2-year FY19, FY20 budget was to fully restore stabilization. And Representative Cahill certainly recognizes how this has hurt so many communities across the state, particularly the most vulnerable communities, by chipping away at really an essential support at a rate of 4% a year. And for a lot of towns, it's really caused dramatic increases in local property taxes. So that was the first part of it. Second part of it came into play in this current, the school year we're in right now, the FY21 school year. And that is to provide some fiscal disparity aid to communities that really have low property values, more particularly low property values on a per pupil basis, and have to work a lot harder through local property taxes to raise the money they need to operate public education. So, so an additional $50 million went into the current FY21 budget to do that and go to these communities. And the third part was establishing the School Funding Commission to really understand what the problem is, what the problems are in New Hampshire with funding public schools, take a look at a variety of different possibilities and solutions, and you know, iterate on those, and then make recommendations that would eventually be useful, we hope. And as chair of the Funding Commission, this is my #1 priority, that that the work that we've been doing since we first started in January and taking us through the rest of this year will be relied upon by policymakers from all parties, the governor's office, the House, the Senate, particularly during budget negotiations, and really address the inequities that I think we all recognize exist, not just in Newmarket, but here in Hopkinton too, up the road in Claremont, way up the road in Berlin, and just on the other side of Concord from us in Pittsfield, but all over the state of New Hampshire. So what have we done that's different? Why isn't this going to result in the same you know, flat you know, $3,700 sent to every school district in the state based upon the number of students they have? Well, first of all, what hasn't been done since the early 80s, since the early 1980s, because school funding has been an issue since I think even in the 1880s in New Hampshire, is actually contract with a national expert consulting firm on evaluating what we're doing here in New Hampshire and the impact it has on students and taxpayers. And so we contracted with two groups. We contracted with the Carsey School at the University of New Hampshire to manage our work, provide analytical services, and keep us on task. And we also contracted with the American Institutes for Research, and they're all over the place, and they're a big, you know, consulting firm, but they have one of their special areas is in education funding consulting. So we contracted with them, and just last month they released the draft of their final report based on really tearing into all of the, well, your budget committee, so you know these things, the DOE 25 data, tearing into that from every school district in the state, going back 10 years, and really analyzing that, drilling into the performance outcomes that we have in New Hampshire that are collected by the Department of Education in terms of standardized assessment scores, attendance, graduation rates, and really taking a look at how students are performing. One of the things that I think we all knew, and AIR certainly pointed out, is that we have a lot to be proud of here in New Hampshire. because we're one of the top states in New England in terms of educational outcomes, performance outcomes. And New England's among the tops in the country. So New Hampshire's among the tops of the country. I think we may have slid a couple notches in the last couple of years, but you know, we may have slid from number 4 in the country to number 6 in the country or something like that. But we have a lot to be proud of in terms of the quality of our public education system. It's just not true everywhere. It's true on average, but some districts are performing way above state average, and other districts are performing way below state average. So what our consultants at AIR pointed out, very first, I think it's probably the first paragraph in the report, is that the school funding system in New Hampshire isn't fair to students, and it's not fair to taxpayers either. And so this isn't, I mean, I can see you're all stunned by that. I think it's something we all recognize, but it's one thing when we recognize it, and it's entirely another thing when independent consultants bring you to that point and then explain how you can rectify, or ways to rectify, both of those inequities. So that's what they've done. And it's really up to the 16-member commission. I think 6 of us are legislators, 4 from the House, 2 from the Senate. The rest are people from our New Hampshire community. A couple of them are superintendents. A couple of them are education experts. And we've got a former commissioner of the DRA is on that. A former deputy commissioner of the Department of Education is also on there. So it's really it's a commission panel with a lot of interest and a lot of background in New Hampshire schools and the history behind education funding in New Hampshire. I would say among all the things that where the commission's going, and a lot still yet to be decided, a real major change is really to focus adequacy not on what goes into public education, but what comes out of public education. What are our outcomes? And so because New Hampshire has a lot to be proud of by our average outcomes, we know how much New Hampshire spends, all, you know, from, you know, when I say New Hampshire spends, what our total all-in cost is, you know, state revenues, local revenues, you know, in terms of funding public education. We know what it costs to get those average outcomes. And so, you know, calculating or developing a model, and that's what our consultants helped do for us, developing a model that will show what the estimated costs are for every school district across the state. And we've got it broken down by all the cities and towns that are members of those districts to achieve state average outcomes among the best in the country, and do it on a fair basis so that we're not leaving some students behind. And it will, at least from all of the commission meetings we've had, and we meet every week, sometimes twice a week. We've done this continually since the beginning of January. We lost about 3 or 4 weeks from about early March until the beginning of April, and then we resumed via Zoom. But we've really believe the commission has really embraced this outcome-driven approach, and in the commission's final report, like I said, we really hope that it will help drive policymakers, governor's office, House, and Senate to refer to the work we've done when looking at how we go about delivering on the equity that's so you know, badly needed for our students, but also the equity, and when I say that, I mean fairness that our taxpayers across the state also deserve as well. My final thing would be you can download the commission has a website. It's managed by the Carsey School, so you can probably just search on New Hampshire school funding Carsey and get to it. You can get the final report right on the main page. If you click on resources, you can dig down and have all the stuff that's been reviewed by commission members at each of our meetings. Plus, there's the recordings of the Zoom meetings, all the minutes and agendas and stuff like that too. But it's a really comprehensive collection, I think, of everything that's been done in New Hampshire over the last several decades as far as school funding, from court cases and legal opinions right through obviously the latest Conval case that heard oral arguments in the Supreme Court last week. So anyway, let me stop there and happy to take questions, Dan.
Well, Dave, thank you very much for doing this. This is Joe Lamontina. So can you kind of like give us a rough description of what it is that they're coming out with? My take is, my understanding is, you're kind of like looking towards a $5 per thousand property tax, going along with the property tax, basically, to fund education. Is that where they're going?
Well, the AIR report laid out a couple of different straw man scenarios. They're not, they're not moving us into tax policy. They're kind of showing us a couple of different ways where it could be done using our existing New Hampshire's existing sources of revenues. So when you sort of take a look at how it breaks down, all in, New Hampshire spends about a little over $3 billion on public education. You roll out about $650 million that the state gets from non-state property tax revenues, so business profits tax, BET, things like that. And then you roll out another $360 million, which is the state property tax. And that leaves you with a little over $2 billion, $2.1 billion, which is derived from local property taxes, which across the state range from about $1 per thousand to in the 30s per thousand. So they're all over the place. There's a lot of different models that I think we can be looking at. We're going to be learning more about the Massachusetts Chapter 70 model in the next couple weeks, and that actually starts with a mandatory minimum local property tax, and then has a distribution formula, it has a grant formula that is dependent upon property wealth in a community. But we're looking at a lot of different ways of doing this. Ultimately, the commission's not going to be the one that decides on sources of revenues. You can plug in whatever number you want for the state of New Hampshire non-property tax revenue amount, and it will be up to lawmakers like Mike and myself and whoever's in the governor's office and the Senate members to put that together. But I certainly hope they'll rely on the underpinnings, the equitable underpinnings in this report to guide that.
You care to give the crystal ball with what's going to happen?
Really hard to do. I mean, I hear from people who say, "Oh, Dave, have you considered this? Have you considered this? Have you considered this? Have you considered this?" And I think Michael will probably agree with me. that you know, debates on things can definitely get really messy. So and can take a lot of time. And you know, one of the things I think that we you know, also have to recognize is that you know, we don't have a lot of time here. I mean, kids are going through the system, and in a lot of the school districts across the state, they're not even coming up close to state average outcomes. In fact, the nearly 12,000 students that go through Manchester every year, and about 1,000 graduating. The average student there is nearly, well, I mean, I'm a wonky guy, but nearly 2 standard deviations off the norm. And you know, it's the outcomes are as all over the place as the property tax rates.
Other
Anybody else?
questions? While we have Dave here. Roger?
Dave, you expect your final report to be available from the commission in mid-year?
No, we expect it'll be in December.
In December, in this coming December?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we're sprinting towards.
And then would you expect the legislature to start looking at alternatives in 2020 or 2021, or wait till 22?
Well, it'll be during 2021, because that's when the session will start. So the first applicable year for this would be fiscal year FY22. The schools are already in FY21, and you know, we'll be looking to I mean, I fully expect we'll start to see some legislation filed during the November filing period, open to all legislators, and then there's also the budget process, which really begins to take shape on a legislative, you know, in a legislative way, in the later part of the winter, so February-ish, and we expect there'll be some policy developed within the FY22 and 23 budget.
Thank you.
Hey, Dave,
Hey.
this is Mike Kennison. I had a quick question on the Newmarket School Board. And what's the political makeup of your commission? Is it pretty split down the middle?
No, that's a good question, and sometimes that's hard to guess if you look. I mean, it's not hard to guess when you look at the legislative members, because you know, they're either R's or D's. But you know, the governor had an appointee on here as well. I had a few appointees, and so did the speaker, so did the Senate president, and you know, nothing's easy. These are everybody's asking tough questions. Nobody's coming at this, I think, from a predictable standpoint. But most important, Mike, you know, for this to be durable legislation, this is going to have to be a bipartisan effort. And you know, otherwise, you know, no matter what happens, it'll just, you know, jerk back the other way. You know, anytime the chambers change hands. So we know that, I think, to do right by students, families, and taxpayers, this needs to have some durability to it.
Thank you.
Mike Cahill?
Yes, I just wanted to add that I shared an article from from In-Depth New Hampshire by Gary Rayno, a longtime journalist covering the State House, and about the 30-year struggle with education funding that we've had. And I understand it does probably go back to 1880s, but 30 years that Gary's been covering it.
Right.
And we just have been kicking the can, and the can's got a lot of dents in it, but I'm hoping that this is going to make a difference. And I wanted to add too, that I've watched a couple of the Zoom sessions, and One of the members of the commission is Rick Ladd, a Republican, sometimes chair, sometimes ranking member on the Education Committee, who is a very good person on this issue. And he's, of course, we talked a little bit about building aid in the past, Rick Ladd and I, and that's another concern that he may get rolled into this or left separate, but perhaps funded, which would be an important goal too.
No, that's absolutely right, Mike. And you know, Rick's been you know, really good on a lot of issues that affect districts, whether it's building aid grants, transportation. He represents a district that also has very high property taxes. So you know, so he feels the pain in the checkbook too. So so it's good to work with Rick on that, and I'm looking forward to continue working with him the same way we did 2 years ago when we developed House Bill 709, which was really the largest, most meaningful increase in state support for public education we've had in a long time, particularly with the fiscal disparity aid for communities with low property wealth.
All right. Any other questions? Representative Luneau?
Happy to take them. So you can, anything comes up, you can certainly email me directly. You can find my, you know, it's dluno at dlunonh@gmail.com. It's also on the general court website. But if you want to send comments to the School Funding Commission, you can also email the School Funding Commission at, I think it's school-funding@carsey.unh.edu. And that email address is also on the bottom of, I think, all of the commission web pages too. So those will be collected, and those are disseminated to all the commission members. And we also do take public comment at the end of every full commission meeting. And we have extended public comment periods twice a month. We'll be having one Wednesday starting at 4 o'clock. The Zoom link for that is in the House and Senate calendars. You can also find it on the commission calendar on the commission's website. And we have a substantial public engagement effort in place too, coordinated through the Carsey School and New Hampshire Listens to really reach out to not just students and families and teachers and faculty and staff, but to taxpayer associations, to community leaders, budget committee members, select board members, school board members, and we've been amassing a lot of interest and response through that effort. Great.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time this evening. We appreciate the education and the information, and
no, delighted to do it, and happy to report back anytime, Dan.
Great.
All right, I'm going to drop off. Take care,
Thanks for
folks.
having us. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yep. All right. So let's move along on our agenda. Again, if there's no objection, if we could let the school district do their update, and we'll just save the minutes for the end, if that works for everybody. I see general nods of agreement. So Jana and Susan, Mike had forwarded along some documents from the last school board meeting, but we'd be interested to hear whatever you can add to it.
Okay, hi, this is Jana. Thank you for inviting us to the meeting tonight, as usual. So you probably, it was alluded to in the last gentleman's conversation about the DOE 25. So I'm going to go in the order that you have them on the agenda here, but talking about final fiscal year 2020 results. Everybody wants that to boil down to just one number. With the report has a lot of information on it, but the one that everybody focuses on and cares the most about is the unassigned fund balance from the school budget that goes back to reduce taxes. So there's a document in your packet that kind of explains what that is and why it's important. We filed that report with the state, the DRA and the DOE. As of this point, we have had, our auditors have given us preliminary financial information on our audit. While we don't have a final report yet, we do not expect any material changes to the financial part of the report. So we are prepared to share that our unassigned fund balance to reduce taxes for fiscal year 20 will be $1,082,620. And that will go forward as we set the tax rate with our new budget for fiscal year 21-22. Does anyone have any questions on that?
Yeah, this is Joe Lamontina. I'm confused. So this, I thought that out of this $1.8 million, or 182, whatever it is there, that a good portion of that was already going to be utilized by the school for other things. Is that not true?
Are you referring to the RSA where we fund like a contingency fund and that type of thing?
The interest, the bond interest, right? Is that
This is the bond? This doesn't take into account the bond. This is really from the budget. The school bond was a construction bond, and that's still an ongoing project.
okay? All right. So that was my confusion. This 1.8 million is nothing to do with the bond interest. It's strictly the budget.
Right. Other than, when we had a lot of money in our account for the bond, we earned interest and that became income or revenue to the district, but that's a small component of what you see here.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm all set then, I think.
Okay.
And just quickly for the recording and the video and for Patricia, just to clarify, it's $1,082,000. It's not 1.8 million. That would be something to get really excited about.
Oh, did I say 1.8 million?
No,
Oh.
Joe did.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I could have too. It's been a long day.
Hi, Jenna. This is Eric Wilgoat. I have a quick question. Are you guys going to do a press release to let the townspeople know that you're returning this money?
Well, generally that's done as part of the budget process. When we set our tax rate, we kind of all look at that together with the school board and the budget.
Right. I'm
committee.
talking about a separate press release. I think people need to know this, and it gets lost in all the other information. Just a thought.
That's great feedback. I would defer to Dr. Givens on that. I do think we send out some newsletters to the town as part of our regular, our budget process. And that's great feedback. So thank you.
I'm happy to include it in an upcoming letter to the parents. I don't, however, have access to the community, broader community channels, but I can certainly put something out. Word does travel fast, so.
Yeah, I don't, I do appreciate my good friend Eric's enthusiasm. At the same time, I guess my counsel on this might be cautious about setting expectations for things that might not recur in future years. This is,
I don't know. In my experience, I've always found it to be beneficial. It always becomes a point of information as you go through the next budgetary process, but.
yeah, well, there's many viewpoints on it. My thought is always be a little wary of accidentally setting expectations.
Right. Well, and especially with this year that we're in right now, even in 2021, we're still in the middle of COVID. So this budget that we're working off right now was prepared pre-COVID. So we really have two budget cycles that are going to be significantly impacted by what we have here. And at this point in the year, we're still hiring. We still are kind of actively addressing our educational needs. So that's a good point.
Okay. So just another question. So we have the sort of the preliminary audit results. What's the rough timing on having the final audit done?
We had to have an actuarial analysis done on our other pensions and benefits, which is a biennial process. That is still in the process of being finalized. It goes into the notes of the audit. So we can't get the finalized report until that information has been compiled and added into the audit. So I anticipate by the end of probably late October, we should have all the pieces to do the footnotes of the audit, and then we would be looking at getting a draft report back from our auditors.
Okay, thank you. I also wanted to say I really appreciated the budget season calendar that you included in this packet. I'm probably going to steal portions of it for setting up my own calendar for this committee, along with cribbing some things from Steve. So thank you for that. It gives us something pretty good to work with in terms of how the timeline looks from the school district side of things.
Well, I can't take credit for that. I updated dates. That was a district document, but I'm glad you found it helpful.
Other questions from committee members?
Yeah, Dan, just on that point, in terms of the scheduling, I think it's important to kind of look out long-term now. You know, we're both, when I say both, that we, the school district and the budget committee are on the same page as the delivery of things. So there's adequate time for folks to, you know, to review and ask questions and all that.
I mean, I know it's a while before you'll know for sure, but I've not heard of any warrants being contemplated on the school side aside from just the normal ones. Is that more or less what you're thinking as well?
Without speaking for the entire board, that's my understanding.
Okay, that obviously makes life easier. I also haven't heard of anything coming from the town side, although Steve's on vacation and Bill's not with us tonight, but
I think from the school side, we may have a warrant article or two, but nothing like last year as the building project's completed and we don't have any negotiations that we're actively involved in that would require funding. So I think if we do, it'll be maybe one or two items, very low dollar, but it is possible. I suspect that that the PTA will ask us to move forward with a similar warrant article this year that we had last year, which stated that if we had money left over at the end of the year, that we would set aside up to $50,000 to help co-fund the playground project. So given that we're in this COVID environment, a lot of fundraising for the playground is not able to be pursued, you know, simply because people can't get together for fundraising activities. So I suspect that I expect to get a call at some point soon asking us to do the same. So, but that would really not have a budgetary impact per se, or require anybody to raise and appropriate money. But there might be something along those lines, but nothing significant.
all right, thank you. Other questions? Going once, going twice. Thank you for your time this evening, and please come back often.
Yes. Dan, can you just have your committee look at the dates that we have question marks by and let me know as soon as you can what those dates might be. Right now, we're looking to have a budget to you that's approved or adopted by the school board just before Thanksgiving. But I recall last year that we gave it to you, you had it for a week or so, and then we came and did a presentation. Yep. And so the sooner I can get the date, the better for us. And then
well, and that's helpful to know. If you're shooting for Thanksgiving, then we'll probably shoot to have the first working session. Maybe come back that first Monday in December. We'll look at the calendar, and okay. I'll by our next meeting, which comes up at the end of October, I'll try to get a calendar fleshed out, get it in front of everybody a week or two in advance of the meeting, and then we can go over it and make sure it works for everyone.
And then I had one other question. I just don't have these budget committee meetings on my calendar, so they're coming up, without time for me to often get these on my calendar. And I was just wondering, is there a pattern to your meetings? Are you meeting on
Yep.
a certain time?
Last Monday of the month.
All right,
So,
thank you. Last Monday of the month?
yep, October, we tentatively have the 26th.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'll get
Sure.
it on my calendar now.
All right, let's moving along. Again, the town wasn't able to be with us this month, so, but I don't think there's been any major developments there anyway. They were pretty close to being nailed down on their end of year fund balance last month when we got together, so. One other question, I guess, while you're still here. So I'd sent around the information on FEMA and their change in policy on reimbursement for the PPE and cleaning supplies. At the same time, I know the media was really just picking up on that story and the firestorm was just starting. Any developments at all on that front? I'd seen at least one report that said FEMA was waffling a little bit on their policy. Anything new, or is it still pretty much what we knew before?
I have not heard the waffling.
Yeah, I haven't either.
I've heard it's pretty definitive.
Okay.
It is definitely, we were notified of this on a Friday afternoon at 4:44. And we were given 3 options of what to do. We already had a claim filed with FEMA on behalf of the school district with our liaison for expenditures that we'd already expended in 1920. So it came a little bit as a shock because when we've been talking with our liaison, and not just to this district, but to school districts across the state, because they'd been telling us not only did they feel that we would be able to get the PPE and the cleaning supplies, but they mentioned that FEMA was looking at expanding the definition of eligible expenditures to include things like desk dividers, plexi dividers, cleaning equipment, sanitation, HVAC modifications that were needed to address COVID. So it was kind of a shock to all of us in the school committee, a community rather. We were very fortunate, and I think you saw the email that the town did have another means of funding called Gopher Funds, and they were very gracious to meet with me on a Friday afternoon to gather information. So with a deadline of Tuesday, they had already had their submission ready to go. They had to do some rework to add ours in. We did the best we could with a very short timeline, but we were also held to the constrictions of the requirements of the Gopher funds, which meant that it had to have been a complete transaction by August 31st. And as you know, we're still gathering things in. So there are things that we're going to have as expenditures that wouldn't meet that deadline. But we were grateful for at least the opportunity to recoup some of that on behalf of the town and the residents here, as both organizations are funded by the same group of people. So I would be delighted if they'd reconsider it, but their ruling, I'm forgetting the exact wording of it, but it was quite stunning that schools are not considered to be necessary to protect public health, life, or safety, and the education of children doesn't fall into that category. So there you have it.
Well, yeah, from what I read, the federal government had very important jet plane parts that needed to be purchased. So, and not at all atypical of this administration to deliver bad news at 4 o'clock on a Friday.
Not at all.
So
that it certainly will keep you and the board apprised if we hear anything further. But I have not heard of any potential changes to that.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So shall we take a minute and look at the minutes from our last meeting? I quickly read through them while I was eating lunch today, and did not see anything that was out of line with my recollection. But please jump in now if there's anything you think should be edited or added or removed.
This is Roger.
Yep.
One thing I noticed is that the last, at the end of the minutes, it announces that the next meeting will be the 27th of September, and it should be the 28th.
That is a very good point, and very possibly why Tim at Channel 13 was confused. So,
Okay. All right.
it's,
But on a slightly different, if I could ask a
Yep.
question, you made reference to a packet of information, including schedule and so forth from the school. Did you forward that to us?
it was part of the email that I sent out, and I apologize to everybody. That email had an unwieldy number of attachments, but the attachment was titled budget info _ 09/18/2020. Looks like perhaps it was created by one of those, the kind of scanner machines that you just throw a pile of documents on and it makes a PDF file for you. Roger, if you're talking, you're on mute.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. All right. Can I have a motion from the committee on the minutes of the August 31st, 2020 meeting?
So moved.
So moved what?
To
Sorry, we
adopt
got to be
the
specific about this.
To adopt the minutes as written.
Thank you, Mike. Do I have a second?
Second, Joe
Thank
Lamattina.
you. Thank you, Joe. All right, so we'll do a roll call vote. I'm just going to go in the order that I see you on my screen. Eric Lagode,
Yes.
Joe Lamattina,
Yes.
Jeff Robb,
Abstain.
Mike Kinnison,
Yes.
Mike LaBranch,
Yes.
Councilor Brabeck.
Abstain.
Thank you. Roger Cady.
Yes.
Matt Evangelista joined the committee after the last meeting, so I think you need to abstain, if that's all right.
Correct. Abstain.
Okay. And the chair votes aye, so we are unanimous with 3 abstentions on approving the minutes of the last meeting. The final item we have on our regular agenda tonight is this is the resolution of the Budget Committee on the rules for submissions and agenda items. Joe was good enough to go back after the last meeting and reword the section on or change the wording to reflect 2 business days as opposed to what we had there before. So I guess before we open discussion, I'd like to have a motion on accepting the resolution 2020/2021 to be numbered. I suppose it'll be 01 as submitted by Joe.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we accept, that the budget committee accept the wording of the, whatever it is. They said the other time.
Resolution 2020/2021-01. I'm going to say we'll call it.
Yes. Make a motion that we accept the wording as written.
Second.
Thank you, Roger. Motion by Joe, second by Roger. Discussion.
Yeah, I had a question. I noticed that it had the word will listed in there. I've never seen anything. It's usually may or shall.
I could certainly see the difference if we wanted to propose a change to may. Although, candidly, we may accept items at any time based on our own discretion. My point of view, I guess, is that will and shall are essentially interchangeable in this context. But hey, Mike, you know a good lawyer who could look at this?
Yeah, no, I won't bill for that. Either one's fine with me, either word, but
Matt, does that work for you?
Yeah, no, I just, as long as there's clarification on it, because
Okay.
I was thinking that in a situation where the information is, rather than just say, you're going to accept this person's information and it's incomplete, it may not meet your satisfaction as the chairman. And this way you have options.
And that is entirely possible, although if somebody just hands me a cocktail napkin with some numbers on it, I mean, it's my job. I will certainly scan that and bring it to the rest of you, and we'll accord it all the weight that it deserves when we make decisions. So, these are the sort of decisions that we're elected to make. My point of view, anyway. Other comments? If hearing no others, I'd like to move this to a vote. So we will do a roll call vote. Eric?
Yes.
Joe?
Aye, yes.
Jeff?
Aye.
Mike Kennison?
yes.
Mike LaBranch?
Yes.
Megan Brabeck?
Aye.
Roger Cady?
Aye.
Matt Evangelista?
Yes.
Chair votes aye. We are unanimous with, again, one abstention because Rob isn't with us this evening. And that brings us to the end of our regularly scheduled agenda. Is there any other business that any committee members would like to bring up this evening?
I got two things. One, it was just a comment, I guess, or a personal opinion. I'm a little disappointed in the school funding committee, what they've done. I was kind of hopeful that they were going to do something a little bit bolder, and that we may see the results of that in the upcoming years, the next couple of years maybe. But my personal opinion is kind of sounds like they're going a property tax route, and it's just going to be more of the same old for another 30 years. So that's just a editorial comment on my part. But the other thing is, do we want to talk about scheduling at all, or what's the next steps on scheduling here?
How about this, if it's acceptable to everybody? I have a miserable week this week. I'm going to be on Zoom meetings for about 8.5 hours a day through the end of this week. But early part of next week, with, again, some assistance from the calendar that the school district put together, and I'll probably reach out to Steve as well. I'll send out a calendar to this group for everybody to take a look at. And, then we can come back together and have a well-rounded discussion at our next meeting. I mean, candidly, just to be honest with all of you, I'm wiped. I've been on Zoom meetings. This is my 8th and 9th hour today. So if people would like to discuss it, that's fine, but I'm not going to be much help to you at this hour.
No, that's fine. But when are you proposing that we get together again? In the last Monday of October?
Yes.
How will that be enough time?
My hope is yes. I mean, if you look at the school district's calendar, and I know the town usually runs about 1 week ahead of the school district, the budget, they're not really looking to make a submission to us until, oh goodness, apologies. I think I closed that, but it was basically the week of Thanksgiving. So let's say, for the sake of argument, that means the town will be getting their budget to us sometime the week of November 16th. So what that suggests to me is that it's probably that the week that begins November 30th is probably the week that we're going to have to start like accelerating our schedule and meeting every week so that we can be, I mean, the goal is usually for us to be done with the hearings by the end of December. And then after that, the only thing we're left with is if any petition warrants come forward.
Okay, all right.
Sounds good to me. Once you do a draft, then we'll have a discussion about the draft.
Yeah, just
Otherwise,
please
we're
everybody
going circle.
remember that we can't do the discussion via email. That is, you know, a violation of right to know, and Steve will start sending me emails telling me that we're doing it wrong. So Jeff, that seemed reasonable to you? I mean, please,
Yeah, that
if
makes
anybody feels uncomfortable with it, now's, you know, the time to speak up.
As long as there's enough Mondays to fit it all in. I don't know, you know, how the dates fall this year compared to past years if we lost 6 days or something. We do have to review the CIP though, right? So that would be.
Actually, no, we don't. There's no obligation on us to review the CIP. That's the town council has to review that.
I just meant in past years, we've had a little small presentation from folks that attended the meetings just to go over.
Okay, I mean, yeah, that
Simple.
I would actually suggest we put that on the agenda for our next meeting because it should be voted on and complete by then. And yeah, I mean, it's informative, but at the same time, I you know, then the town and the school district go and do what they're going to do. And past experience suggests that the two are never that closely aligned.
I should probably give everybody an update on the CIPs, and Roger and I were on that committee.
Please.
We are done. We did finish about, I don't know, a week or two ago. Diane Hardy has finalized it, and she just sent it off to Steve and the town council. So they'll be presenting it to the town council. I don't know exactly when, in one of the upcoming sessions. We can certainly, Roger and I can certainly give you guys an update when we get the finalized version.
Okay. I mean, I assume there's nothing earth-shattering in there?
No, we did something a little bit different than what we've done in the past, in that we did, in fact, make a couple of recommendations to the town. I don't know how they'll take it. One of the recommendations was, you know, they're spending $400,000 on the town hall over the next 3 years for updates, and it still isn't going to meet the needs. And so we made a recommendation for them to, you know, start thinking about maybe a new town hall, or, you know, come up with a plan as to what it is that they're actually going to do. And then I forget what the other two resolutions were, but I wrote them, and we can discuss that the next one.
Like, I think we're literally about to, well, not this year, but next year will be the first budget cycle ever where the dam project is finally complete.
Yes, I've heard a lot about that too.
There's going to be no more dam warrant article jokes. I'm sad about that.
I'm sure that the town council's heard their share of stuff too.
Hey,
Okay.
Dan and Joe, just a quick comment on the proposed calendar that the school district put forward. That's based off the Department of Revenue Administration's recommended calendar. So that should look familiar from years past. It should provide enough time. You know, I endeavor to move the board along maybe even a little quicker than that, because it's always nice to have the time and not need it rather than pushing up against deadlines. So that's the origin of that. It's not totally our creation.
We appreciate it. It's no fun to have emergency meetings at the last minute to vote on things, as we can all attest, or at least anyone who's been doing this for any length of time. All right. Any other business? Joe, I thought you said you had two things. I only remember hearing one, so.
Yeah, the two things were, one was just the comment about the committee.
Oh, I see. Thank you. All right. If there's nothing else, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Thank you, Roger. Do I hear a second?
A second.
Thank you, Jeff. Let's do a roll call vote. Eric,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Mike Kennison,
Yes.
Mike LaBranch,
Yes.
Counselor Braybeck,
Aye.
Roger,
Yes.
Matt.
Yes.
Chair votes aye. We are unanimous and we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a lovely evening.